Good morning, it's Chris Worden. If you enjoy the videos that we post on here, please subscribe to the channel. We try and put out a video a day, and our aim is to explain insolvency in a way that people can understand and make sure that they don't walk into any problems down the line. So following on our series this week, we're talking and doing videos about the contractor market. The IR35 tax reforms that came into play in April this year have affected thousands of personal service companies, and what they are essentially is one man and one woman band companies, because a lot of people now they've had essentially a ban on using these companies. Now, I'm going to do a little bit of a case study for you today about an inquiry we had a few weeks ago. Well, let's call the guy Tony. Now, Tony, he'd worked in the oil and gas industry for over 10 years. He'd contracted to a company using a limited company. And he's been negatively impacted by IR35. So he should have called us 3 months ago in his words, but he's been desperately trying to find a role that falls outside IR35. There's been a blanket ban for the companies that he used to contract for, which means he now has to take a paid position through PAYE. And that also means he's taking a bit of a wage cut as well. So here is his problem. He owes corporation tax just, I think it's just under or just over £3,000. He took a bounce back loan. So his bounce back loan was his bounce back loan was 16,000. He took it last May. So I said, Tony, in the year 2019, how much did you turn over? It's always the first question that I asked. And he turned over about £65,000. So he's took exactly the right bounce back loan. I then asked him what had he spent it on. Now, Tony has spent it on courses, upgrading his tickets. He's spent some of it on expenses, sort of getting up to Aberdeen, hotels, train journeys back home. He'd also used some of it to pay a previous year's corporation tax, and he'd taken some of it as salary through the pay-as-you-earn scheme. So one of the things that I always like to check is, have you got a director's loan account? Tony has no director's loan account, thankfully. And he's got about £3,000 left in the bank. So what are his options? Well, he's insolvent. The company that he has is insolvent on a number of definitions. It can't afford to pay its debts when they fall due. It also has more liabilities than assets. So I did talk to him about the idea of, well, what would happen if you speak to HMRC? I'm sure you'll be able to get that money restructured over a 2-year period. You could use the pay-as-you-grow option to sort of give you 6 months breathing space to pay the bounce back loan back, and perhaps extend it over 10 years. But once he considered that, even with those breathing, those measures in place to give him some breathing space, he can't use his limited company in the offshore oil and gas industry anymore. So really the best option for Tony and his company is to go into voluntary liquidation. And that's the end of his company. He appoints an insolvency practitioner, and the bounce back loan will be written off and the corporation tax will be written off, because he has no assets. He is the company. He is, by the truest definition of the word, a one-man band. So just before we gave him that advice, though, we thought it'd be worth checking as to whether or not he has a redundancy claim. He's been on the pay-as-you-earn scheme for just over 10 years, and his claim is worth £10,000 to him. Yeah, you've heard that right. It's £10,000 that he will get paid after he goes into liquidation from the Redundancy Payments Office. So quite a significant amount. Now, his cost to liquidate was £5,000 plus VAT, which he did not have. But he's paid £3,000. The money that he's got in the bank, he's going to use that to help fund his liquidation. And out of his £10,000, he's going to pay £3,000 over to the liquidator. So he's going to be better off to the tune of £7,000. And one thing that I get all the time for people is, I wish I'd have spoke to you sooner, Chris. So with there being a lot of confusion about company closure, a lot of myths, a lot of incorrect advice out there on the internet. I'm going to be doing another webinar next Thursday, the 15th of July, 12 o'clock, and it's aimed at contractors. If you've been affected by IR35 and you no longer need your limited company, I'm going to explain to you what your options are in great detail. I'm going to explain striking off a company, when you can and when you can't do it. I'm explaining liquidation. What does it cost? What does it entail? Can you liquidate with a bounce back loan? I'm also going to be explaining director redundancy claims, because I mean, this guy never realised that he was due £10,000 legally. And I'm also going to be answering as many questions as I possibly can do that you give me. So that's next Thursday, 12 o'clock, Thursday, the 15th of July. And listen, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment on it. I'm going to be dropping the